Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining me today on Conversations with Coaches. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Jennifer Tamborski, CEO and Chief Strategist at Virtual Marketing Experts, and I have the unique opportunity to connect with and talk to coaches all the time. So I'm sharing my opportunities with you. Today I'm talking with David Ross. David, let our audience know who you are, what you do, and who you serve.
Okay, so my name's Dave Ross. I'm an author, coach, motivator. I am the founder of an organization called I Finally Quit. We definitely have a website for that, ifinallyquit.com, where basically what we do is we coach people, help people to quit bad habits and form better ones.
Awesome. So I know they call you the quitter. So how did you get that nickname?
So basically, so I wrote this book called I Finally Quit, and So Can You. And I was doing like this. I've done a lot of interviews. I've been on the news. I've been around. And just during one of these conversations that I was having years ago, we were talking about some of the things, the bad habits that I'd put behind me. I was a really heavy drinker. I was a really heavy smoker, both for over 2 decades. And the bottom line is we were just going through a list of different things that I had quit. And the person that was interviewing me said, "You know who you are? You're Dave the Quitter." And I went, "Oh, all right." So it just kind of stuck there. So yeah, I've had people walk up to me and go, "Hey, you're the quitter." Okay, great. But the one twist or caveat I would put on there that we've dealt with over the years is trying to get people to maybe really focus on the definition of being a quitter versus being one who gives up. So sometimes, people will say, "Well, I'm not a quitter." And I say that's a shame, because many times quitting is the best thing you could possibly do, whereas giving up is usually the worst thing that you can do. So, we keep a positive spin on being the quitter.
I love that. But so quitting is hard, giving up is easy.
Yeah,
What's the difference?
So giving up is, it really is easy, when life gets stressful, or, whether it's a family situation, whether it's a business situation, it can be anything. And when we reach a point to where we just throw our hands up and walk away, or we have that dejected feeling of, the negative thoughts that come in, like the "I can'ts" and "it'll never" and whatever, when that overwhelm sets in, one of the easiest things that you can do is just give up and accept the negative situation. Whereas, so that's why I say, giving up is easy. Quitting is hard. Quitting a bad habit, or quitting a bad relationship, or quitting and actually drawing that line in the sand and sticking to it, takes fortitude. It takes focus. It takes direction. And it takes affirmation, not just from yourself, but from others. So, yeah, being a quitter many times is, it's a struggle. It's a day-to-day, sometimes minute-to-minute thing. But the rewards that people, get from quitting is much better than they get from giving up.
I really love that distinction because it is so true. And I think quitting often gets a bad rap, whereas it's not necessarily the same thing.
Yeah. And that's, so whenever I run into that situation, I'm like, wait. You're not talking about the same thing I'm talking about. You're talking about giving up. I'm talking about quitting.
So I know you have action plans, but they don't focus on like the dates and the timeline of quitting. They're on the 5 W's and the WTH moments.
Yes.
What are those?
First of all, the WTH moment is really cleaned up. It's the what the moment, that many of us come to, where we realize the actions and behaviors that we have are, when we step back and look at them, we're like, what the am I doing, right? and to get to that point, to go backwards, the 5 W's, typically it's the who, what, when, where, and why of things. So to step that back one further, I mentioned the ABCs, the actions, behaviors, and consequences. So to wrap it all up, we don't get too focused, or take smoking, for example. That's the low hanging fruit, right? A lot of people want to quit smoking, but this works for any negative or any behavior that you want to get away from. You have to realize that your actions and your behaviors are what lead to your circumstance. So you can either say circumstance or consequence. So when you step back and really look at those 5 W's of the actions or behaviors that you're in, you don't have to have a regimented, 3 days I'm going to do this, and on the 8th day I'm going to put that patch on, and on the 12th day I'm going to smoke 3 less cigarettes. Like, if you get too regimented and you step off of that track, or life gets in the way of the best laid plans of mice and men and all that stuff, right? We can have a plan, which we focus on action plans. The smoking one I mentioned is 8 steps, right? So basically what they all lead to is getting to the underlying root of your actions and behaviors. And if you're not getting the consequence or the circumstance that you want, then the only way to it's like a mathematical equation. A plus B equals C, right? Well, if you want a different C, that means you have to change what A and or B is. And the only way to do that is really with understanding. And so you look at smoking again, when somebody lights up a cigarette, what we have them do is like not beat themselves up over that, but really step back and look at, why are you doing what you're doing right now? Why did you light that up? Who's around you? What's going on? What triggered that? So, with something as simple as a spiral bound notebook, and I wish you could see my desk here. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them. I'm a big fan of spiral bound notebooks.
My desk isn't much better.
So basically, we just have people write down the answers to those 5 W's while they're in the moment. And then many times it does lead to that epiphany, that what the heck, why am I doing, and when we see that pattern develop and we can get to that moment of what the heck am I doing? A lot of times you can let that action or behavior go, or come up with a different one, which changes that equation and leads to a different circumstance.
Yeah, it all comes back to awareness, right? You have to be aware of what you're doing and why you're doing it before you can change what you're doing and how you're doing it.
Yeah. And again, it can be finances, it can be a relationship, whether it's a family member or a coworker or whatever, until you have that awareness. And that awareness doesn't come until you really examine what the heck you're doing.
Yeah. So earlier you were talking about your book that you quit. I finally quit, and so can you.
Yeah.
Tell me about it.
Well, the first thing, I have one right here. So the first thing I have to warn you, though, there is a warning right here on the cover of the book. And it says, reading this book may cause freedom from addictions. So basically, and when I say addictions, it can be any bad habit, right? So this is the book, I Finally Quit, and So Can You. It was with Kickstarter, it was funded, but basically it's how to gain everything. So I love this subtitle, How to Gain Everything by Quitting. Because again, quitting doesn't have to be a bad thing. You can gain things by, it's like addition by subtraction they talk about, so getting rid of bad things actually elevates the rest of things. So yeah, I wrote that book. It's an autobiographical story about a 10-year period of my life where from the outside, the book opens up. I don't want to spoil too much, but I'm fighting for my life. I end up in an emergency room. I get moved to an ICU. I'm on a ventilator. And we all very familiar with the gravity of being on a ventilator. Yeah. Not everybody comes off of one. I was in a coma for 3 days, medically induced coma, 8 days in the ICU, and a total of 15 days in the hospital. So the book opens up with kind of that madness of being in the hospital and what got me there. And it flashes back again. It's that awareness. And, the big question that I ask myself is, how the heck did I get here? And I'm not talking about the car ride to the emergency room. I'm talking about that point in life. So I take a step back and I look at that 10-year period because, seemingly I had it all. I had a really good income that people would really be just thankful for. I had a really good core group of friends. I lived in a great place downtown San Diego, and there was always something to do. I had a great job. I was a national speaker. I was probably the best I was the best that company had. And since we're the only company that had what we had while I was on stage, I was the best in the country. But because our country is the only country that does, I was the best on the world. The only world that has intelligent. Well, anyway, I digress. So I was good at my job and I loved being on stage and doing that. But then due to bad decisions and due to just copious amounts of alcohol, like I was drinking a fifth of bourbon every day, which is about the equivalent of 4.5 bottles of wine, if you can imagine. And I was doing that every day. So ultimately what that led to was the loss of my apartment, the loss of my fiance, the loss of many, many friends. And, I couldn't keep a roof over my head because I'd lost my job, I'd lost my income. And so I had to bounce around the country to anybody that would take me. Ultimately burning just about every bridge I possibly could. So I ruined friendships. I ruined family relationships. I ended up just all across the country, staying anywhere I could. So starting in California, I was in Indiana, I was in Florida. There were many nights that there wasn't even a roof over my head because I chose to, pass out in the middle of a park due to drinking or whatever. So, I was in really bad shape, and ultimately, and I kept drinking through that whole process. And so then I got an old job back, and I kept moving forward, but I was drunk the entire time. And through that process, though, I quit smoking, and it really, part of it was a financial decision, but mostly it was when I went and stayed with my sister and her family, and being around my niece, who was 11 years old at the time. And just not wanting to contribute to the secondhand smoke in her life. So I made her a deal. When I was broke, I told her, I was trying to explain to her how much cigarettes cost and why people smoke them and how dumb it is. And so I made a little contract with her and said, hey, look, I'm going to quit doing this. And, it's costing me whatever it was back then, $5 a day or $3. I don't know what it was, probably $5. And I mean, when I say I had no money, I don't even know how I was affording cigarettes and booze, but every penny I had went to those two things. And so I made her a deal, and I told her I would set aside $1.50 every day that I didn't smoke because I was going to be spending on cigarettes anyway. And I would give it to her on her 18th birthday. So that kind of motivated me. And when I did quit smoking, it's interesting. I started when I was 15. When I was 16, I bought my first quit smoking aid, my first cessation aid. And I continued to smoke for 21 years. So the moment that I quit, I felt it. It was an internal thing. And I just relaxed and went, I finally quit. And then like there was a piece about it. And I started writing, scribbling stuff. And next thing I know, that led to like a little logo that's upside down, but that looks like this, right? So it's IFQ. Like it's just smarter to quit. So I finally quit. And so then I realized, man, I hadn't really done anything. I just quit smoking. Like it was a huge thing. Millions of people want to do it and struggle with it. But I was like, man, if I really want to inspire people, I should probably quit drinking. And so I made this dumb pact with myself. When I turned 40, I would quit drinking. But when you're drinking a fifth of bourbon every day, you don't always get to make the timeline. So my body ended up shutting down. And it was a really scary series of events that, like I mentioned, I started this segment with. I ended up fighting for my life. And through that process, I decided I wasn't going to give up. I was going to get out of that hospital. I was going to write this story, and I was going to share it with people in the hopes that I could motivate one person, somebody, to not feel like they've driven every person, every family member away from them, and not to feel so isolated and essentially dying in a hospital bed all alone, you know? So it was a really sad, dark place. But through that, it inspired me to write this story. And from there, I've gone to help, almost 17,000 people quit smoking. I couldn't tell you how many people message me about just different things. I mean, I've received pictures of people cutting off their hair, and I've received pictures of just some amazing transformations that people have gone through because they've quit or let go of things that used to hold them down. So it's really inspiring, and it keeps me going with this, what I call the IFQ, the I Finally Quit movement. And yeah, that was a long-winded answer.
That was a fantastic story, though, and I know a lot of people can relate to that, to the moment that they decide to quit. Like and I love the fact that you didn't give up.
Yeah. See, now it totally makes sense.
Yeah, it absolutely does. So I do have a question. How much did you end up giving your niece?
Gosh, it's in the book. I'm gonna guess it was somewhere upwards of around, gosh, I want to say it was $850 ish. I mean, I could do the math.
It's all right. I was just curious.
She did get paid. A lot of people have asked, they're like, wait, did you actually pay her? So let's see. She was 11 and a half at the time, and I gave it to her on her 18th birthday. So that would be what, 6.5 years? Mm-hmm. So if we go 6.5 times 365 days in a year times $1.50. Wait, was it $3,500? It was a lot of money. I know I gave it to her.
That's more money than you thought.
Yeah. It's been so long ago. That was 6 years ago. So,
but what a unique way to quit that bad.
Yeah, that must be one of those numbers that, like, you're stunned that you paid out, so you just totally forget it. But no, I can verify that she got it. I just don't recall it being that much.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, we are getting towards the end of our segment. So I wanted to give you the opportunity. How can people, get your book, connect with you? How do they make that? Okay.
So first of all, let me just verify that the address I give you is right. Websites and all, they get a little bit goofy from time to time. So it looks like that one's going to work. So just loading really slow for some reason. So actually, if they just go to ifinallyquit.com, that's the easiest.
Awesome.
And there's a tab there. One of the menu tabs says 5-star book. So you just click that. And this one, it's work, or you can go to, I think, badhabitsbook.com. That's another one. The books, you can buy it online pretty much anywhere, Amazon, Audible, iTunes. Looks like we got the fire department outside, so there's a little background noise. Let me see if I can pull this door real quick here. This little window. Sorry, not the most professional there.
It's all right. It happens. We're all working from home right now, so.
So Barnes and Noble, Walmart, their websites carry it. But yeah, the easiest is either our direct website, which is ifinallyquit.com, or badhabitsbook.com. I can be reached via those websites as well through the contact us. Awesome. Or people can email me directly, david@ifinallyquit.com. So I think that, yeah.
Awesome.
That's where
I will have all of that information in the show notes below if you aren't able to write that. So thank you so much for joining me, David. And thank you, everybody. I really encourage you to quit and don't give up.
There you go.
I will talk to you soon.
Greatly appreciated.